All right, computer science students, this is the input validation lecture, if you will. First things first, let's find out what in the world you're doing here. So you're going to be going to Unit 2. I haven't released this or published it, so you will not see this. Plus, there'll be a few extra links, but you will go to Unit 2 regardless. Okay, so remember, Unit 2, right here, input validation. That's what we're working on here. So let's get into this first. Okay, so quick lecture, main method. Some of you are using BlueJ. I gather that from your other campuses. I would recommend, since you're AP, you stop using BlueJ. However, you want to keep using it, that's fine. However, I think it's time to take the training wheels off and jump up to a better IDE like Eclipse, not BlueJ, JGrasp, IntelliJ, NetBeans, whatever it is that you want to use. But I would recommend getting off BlueJ. Okay, if you want to use BlueJ because you're comfortable with it, that's fine. But just know I don't know anything about BlueJ other than the basics, and I'm not a big fan of it. Nothing against it. I know it's a great software. It's made by geniuses, but that's my 2 cents. Okay, I use JGrasp, and y'all probably would, spit nails at JGrasp. Anyhow, let's quickly talk about the main method. It's not going to be covered in depth on the AP exam. However, it's critical that you know what the main method is, because you'll probably have to identify where certain pieces of code are going to go within a paradigm of multiple classes and objects. And it's critical that you know these things, especially when you start working on labs in here, okay? So our main method always starts off with the public static void main, strings args, which you've seen right there, okay? And generally, those are usually supplied for you, okay? And apparently in BlueJ, that doesn't supply the main method. Same holds true for another software I used to use, which was the precursor to BlueJ, which was called Greenfoot. I used to teach with Greenfoot a long time ago. I don't do that anymore. I decided I don't like Greenfoot, and I would rather teach with Unity, like a game engine. But this is AP. We don't have time for playing games, all right? Okay, so the way it's described, the main method is basically the start button. There's other ways to start programs inside of Java than with the main method. However, what we're doing with the AP Java subset, we will use the main method. Okay, so that's our primary starting point. We'll probably have a few graphic labs if we can pull it off within Replit. Because Replit's my baseline IDE. If it can't run on Replit, I'm not going to teach it, okay? Just because I want to make sure all the Chromebooks are supported. All right, anywho, so FYI, read these slides. All these slides are available to you. I was throwing my 2 cents here with the additional information here that's been provided. I think Mr. Bunn did a good job explaining all this stuff. Anytime you run a tester class, your tester class is typically going to be something, what you would usually call the tester class would be something that runs the program, which would have the main method. And that's what would call all your objects that have all the supplemental code that's going to be performing the actions that you would want. Because we're trying to incorporate a lot of object-oriented programming, which, disaggregates all of the centralized components of the program into a bunch of modular chunks and pieces, okay? It's kind of like a hybrid network type scheme, except with individualized codes. Okay, so back in the old days, back I was like, about that big, the code was just one giant mess of information. Okay, not anymore. They break it up in pieces, which is what makes most software programs pretty compartmentalized and pretty cool, actually. Okay, let's see what else. You can go through the slides here and see what they're talking about, all the different examples here. I'm not going to bore you to death. You can go through and read all this material. See if there's anything important here that I missed or talked about. For example, right here, he's talking about how we're creating an object here called person. Make sure you go read through these things, okay? And you think about this. Don't just glaze over it and go back to TikTok or whatever it is. Go through, think about, look at what's going on, right? So, and here in the next part, he's actually calling it main, and then he is creating an object of the person class right here, okay? And that's critical. You're going to do this on the AP exam, and you also have to know how to call the methods of that particular object, okay, within the tester class, okay? And that's a critical skill. You're going to see that on the AP test. people lose points all the time because they don't know how to do this right here. They screw it up. They don't put the word new. They don't declare it properly, like person. They don't pass in the proper arguments. Okay, it's huge issue. Okay, right here, this isn't so much a problem. They don't really ever test for the main. They just assume that you know those things. So you could go through the whole AP class and screw up the main method initialization from day 1 to day 187, and you still could possibly get a 5 on the AP exam, okay? Because they're not going to test that. They're going to test all these other things that fit inside there. However, your labs are going to be a bit of a challenge if you can't write the main method. So let's make sure we know how to do that. Let's see what else. Right here, he gets a little bit into the args parameter. It's good for those of you that really want to dig in deep on Java. Those of you that just want to get a 5 on the exam, you can skip the rest of this. But those of you that are really super curious, which I'm not one of those people, I'm more of a performer than a scientist. And so with that said, dig in here, explains what's going on in the console. When I first started, that's how we had to do everything, except I started with C and C++ and not with Java. So we ran everything out console on Unix servers like, I don't have any Unix servers here. Not like Ubuntu, but like hardcore Unix servers. Okay, and anyhow, so that's how we ran everything through these command prompts. And I personally don't like it because, I don't know, I don't like playing old video games either. I like playing newer video games. I mean, that's just me. All right, anyhow, so go through, read those things if you're super curious about the string args that happens in the main method. All right, what else we got over here? I think I have another presentation. Scanners pretty cool. Okay, scanners very helpful. It's actually pretty vast, so I would look up some of the different methods for scanner. I don't believe on the AP exam you'll be tested on scanner. I'm pretty sure not. If you're in BPA, though, if you do BPA programming, I know for a fact that the BPA exam has scanner on it because I wrote the exams for the national contest. So, yeah, make sure you know how to use scanner, all right, no matter what it is. Okay, but anyhow, scanner, basically what it's doing is it's getting console input from the user. Okay, so that's how we get user input into things. In order to get user input, we got to create an object. Okay, it seems a little backwards, but it's not once you just accept the fact that you have to create a scanner object. And you look through the example here, read the information right here. Okay, you got to create that scanner object, be able to use the scanner tools. Okay, so if you think about it, scanner has a whole mess of freaking programming on the backside that we don't look at. We can, but we don't have to because of abstraction. And so we can just create that scanner object and go through and access all of its methods. If you want to get super crazy, you can actually go and manipulate these scanner classes on the backside. So just make sure you got a backup copy of Java so that way you can reinstall it in case you screw it up. Okay, so talks about breaking up tokens. Tokens is basically just how it breaks apart data. And on the AP exam and BPA, you're probably going to run into something called delimiters. Delimiters are how we break up data, and that's a common concept, especially in networking, actually business software. We use a lot of delimiters, CSV files, which is when they use commas to separate all the data fields within data records, so that way you can just print them out on some sort of text document and upload it into a database, and it can read all the delimiters inside the files and break it up into all the tables inside the database. So that way you got a systemized process. It's super easy to transfer. It's very quick because you're just transferring text files back and forth. So the CSV file is not text files, but technically it is text, okay? It's just saved as CSV so that way you recognize it. So go through scanners, understand tokens are basically just words, if you will, or groups of numbers, anything that's like a group of information, and the delimiter would be the spacing in between it by default, which is the white space. Okay, so that's the delimiter that separates everything. And if you go through these samples in here, you can see all those things. You'll actually get to do these in your lab. Let's see. He talks a little bit more about this, so read that information. About overloaded constructors. If you don't know what that is, look that stuff up. An overloaded constructor, which means that there's a lot of different options for it. Okay, so there's a lot of different options for it. That's the long story short. I wouldn't know how to use next int, next line, through your console's inputs for your scanner. So that way you got all the information on how to perform these labs properly. Right here, he's got a list of all the different terms that are associated with your scanner class, and you can see some of the words that are used here. You know, parsing and all that kind of stuff. Parse is a big word. Make sure you know that one. Parse. Actually, I would know all these words right here. Okay, I would assume that all these are fair game on an AP exam. Okay, so if they say you need to parse something, you better know what parsing means. Okay, we're not talking about parsley, which is that nasty green stuff they throw on your spaghetti. All right, we're talking about parse. Like, what is parse? Look it up. Scanning a string. Right here, you can see that we put string in. Then we actually have to pass the string object into the scanner that passes into the scanner object. So this scanner object, chopper right here, is storing the string within it. And it's actually going to be able to use that. And you can actually create chopper, and then you can go and pass in new strings into it all the time. Okay, so it's flexible in that you can actually override the original object that gets passed into it. Let's see how much time we got here. So go through, read this. I already said that. I keep saying that over and over again because I want to emphasize that you need to read this stuff. Okay, you're not going to get everything out of this video. You're just getting the quick and easy type information. Let's see. So scanner automates a lot of the input that you're getting from the program. Okay, so instead of, you can physically input information through scanner, or you can also have it automated where it goes through and analyzes the strings or whatever it is that's getting passed into it. Okay, and you'll get to try some of that out as we go through these different scanner methods right here, like has next and has next int. There's quite a few of these things. Let's see, these are pretty self-explanatory. Go through, experiment with these things, okay? If you can't figure out how it works, put it inside your IDE and experiment with it, okay? That's the best way to learn, experiment with stuff, okay? Yeah, go through, critically think about this. I'm not going to explain that. You should be able to figure that out, okay? Well, I guess we could explain it right here. So right here, it wants to know, the question was, why didn't it print the 4 and the 5 from this sample right here? So pause the video, go through, read that, and we should be printing out the 4 and the 5, right? It says while chopper is scanning this object string and it has next int, print this out. Okay, so right there it sees a 4, so it prints out 4, right? But it doesn't print out 5. Why not? Because this is not true after it goes past the 4. This becomes false. This is false now because the next past the delimiter is and, that's the next token. Okay, that's not an integer, so that's not true, which makes that false. It terminates the loop, you're out of that thing. Okay, so that's pretty much what's going on. I think he explains it right there. And go through this, some more details right here, some more words. Make sure you know these things. Play around with it, get used to this stuff. Okay, let's see. There's some more information that you can read. I don't need to explain that. He's teaching you how to use Google. Good job. Delimiters, again, delimiters are how we break up the tokens. Okay, this is a huge, if you're big into networking and you want to get in the white hat hacking and all that kind of stuff, you need to know all about delimiters. All right, delimiters are your best friend. Okay, they're your wingman out there in the world of IT. Okay, so know all about delimiters and tokens and all that kind of stuff. You probably heard those terms when we're dealing with networking terms. Okay, let's see right there. Here's a good example, and I would know this for the BPA exams also, is how to replace the default delimiter inside of a scanner, which is the white space, with a additional scanner. Right here they use a hyphen, but there could be commas because you might have to save it as a CSV file, or could kick it out as a question mark. It could be anything, like any sort of object, or excuse me, any sort of character that you would want to use. Traditionally, you would want to use some character, if you look at your keyboard, something that's not commonly used in normal written syntax of what we call our natural language. This is how we speak and write and all those other things. We don't excessively, when we talk, we don't say, how are you doing today, question mark. We just say, how are you doing? And then the question mark is an assumed inference of the actual question. And that question mark, when we type it up, could be a delimiter. That is a delimiter. because that's what breaks apart that particular statement. So it delimitates the actual statement and allows you to come to a conclusion that we've reached the end of this particular statement. It's a question because of the delimiter, and then we can move on from there. Okay, and that's not a great example, but that's the best one I could think of, and I'm halfway done with a cup of coffee. Okie dokie. Let's see right here. What are you doing in this lab? So you're going to have a lab. You're going to end up with a base file. It's called the validate form. Mr. Bunn did a great job on these things, and he is a very good Java Swing programmer, which I think is cool. I like Java Swing. So anyhow, you get this base program, and he's broken it up in parts, and I'm a big supporter of this kind of file system. Down at the very bottom is a bunch of material you're probably not going to need to mess with, because he's got the main method down here at the very bottom. And he's got some other information. I would go through and just kind of see what he's done right here. This is great to emulate, especially if you're curious about this kind of stuff. Reverse engineer this, kind of take some ownership. However, there is a main method in here. There it is. Okay, so that's what's going to run. I wouldn't go through and mess with all that stuff unless you're, explicitly told to do so. And you can actually go in through, play around with this, have some fun. Just make sure you actually don't need to worry about that. Just play around, have some fun, keep track of the changes you made, so that way if you need to get back to your baseline of where you started, you'll know what you added. So I would comment anything you add on here. However, long story short, what you need to do and understand and make sure this works, okay, is once you throw it inside your IDE, you should get a form like this pop up on your screen that has you go through and put information. And if I put just blah, 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 and password, email, blah, 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 blah. So if I come in here and I start putting all this nonsense, okay, just a bunch of information, doesn't even matter. I'm putting, let's see if it stops that. Oh, it actually did stop it. So there is some checking to see if you're putting the right data. And input accepted. Look at that. That is all acceptable input. Okay, that's not acceptable input. So what you're going to do is you're going to go through and code the methods that it talks about in the lab step by step on how to do that. However, in the lab instructions, if you look at this happy little camper, you'll notice that it starts off with going through a first half, which is where you're going to go through and create some string methods. Go through these step by step by step. Okay, that's pretty easy. I've worked all these the other day. It's pretty common. The only tricky one I found was this right down here, number 11. I didn't realize what was going on with this, but the code and all that stuff is provided for you right here. Okay, so just use that as your code for the key that would go through and separate out the inputted information, okay? And just use the sample materials, okay? Don't try to go and create your own decoding key, okay? Just stick with the sample that's provided here, so that way you don't get confused like I did. I thought we were trying to create some sort of universal encryption key that could span the whole, alphanumeric system on the keyboard, and I was overthinking things. Okay, so keep this real simple right here. All right. The rest is pretty self-explanatory. Most of this is review material. And if it's new to you, because we had a crazy spring semester, that's fine. Don't stress out. We'll get through it. All right, we'll help out. Tutoring. Post your questions in the help desk. Right here, input validation. This is where you start with the actual lab that had the form I was talking about. So go through step by step. I worked through these already. It's pretty step by step. Might be challenging for some, might not be challenging for others, but I think with some good internet queries, and which means searching on the internet, and then also asking for help from classmates or show up for tutoring, you should knock this thing out pretty easy. Okay, it's a good review material. And I believe that is it. Oh, I think there's one other PowerPoint that's provided in your lab materials. It's called basically shows you how to use Eclipse. So if you want to use Eclipse, knock your socks off. I'm going to use JGrass for all my samples in class, and then I'll use Eclipse outside of class. But I'm not going to teach you how to use Eclipse, because we could probably spend the whole semester just tinkering around with Eclipse. All right, I think that is your lab. Did I miss anything? I can't think of anything I missed. Right here, we'll put a help desk. That's missing there. But here's the presentation files I showed you from those PowerPoints, good review material. We'll put some other stuff out there as well as we go forward. And I think that's it. All right. Good talking with you, and y'all have a great day, and good luck on your labs. And make sure you check for the due dates that is posted inside of Canvas, okay? Remember, if it's late by 1 second, 15 points off, okay? Don't be that person, all right? Make sure everything's there on time. So, all right, good luck, and just let me know if you have questions. Look for the help desk section. That'll be underneath here as well, and you should be good to go. All right, talk to you later.